The Cognitive Power of a Timeless Song, Spatial, Strain Stress Map and Topological Adoption of Music, number 1455, VPT Sharp 019, December 3, 2025. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category: Music Cognition Science. Pre-self-assessment. This work is a concept test, not proof. The stress-strain analogy is a thinking lens, not real material data. Durability of a song is rare, so impact curves must use real proxies, not invented decimals. A song carries many meanings, so one model should not lock it into one single interpretation. Music lasts when memory adopts it, not because systems never reset. The reference for this study is the song Imagine, released in 1971 on the album Imagine by John Lennon after leaving the band. The Beatles, with long-tail digital demand later observed on platforms like Spotify. My paper is not trying to impress with perfect music, literature or TDA math. It is trying to reveal that a system lens from physics, energy and mathematics topology can describe long-term music memory, adoption in shapes, layers, and neighbors. On that core mission, it works. So in short, bold idea, yes, but valid. Proxy data, debatable, but expected, honest, and acceptable. VMT part, uses engineering logic to find deeper patterns, and it is meant to explore insight, not to confuse readers. TDA part, a bit weak, true, but still sufficient for concept mapping. Overall value, still strong, if positioned correctly in the conclusion. Preface. After my stroke on June 21, 2025, I began researching stroke causes, including vascular calcification, diabetes, hypertension, and how the brain works. To calm myself and keep my blood pressure lower, I started listening to music more often. That path led me to think about music, and whether my medical research is Viscoplastopology. VPT method can be applied to music cognition science. A great song lives forward in a listener's brain long after the sound fades. Melody travels fast into memory. Words travel slower, but deeper, into meaning and feeling. Rhythm is the combined heart sync effect carried by both melody and lyric. Music changes forward by decade, not resetting once adopted. In engineering, materials bend forward under accumulated force. In biomedicine, systems behave the same. Repeated inputs, reshape organ capacity and responses, and do not completely reset once internal change occurs. Music adoption also bends forward in memory circuits in our brains, following the same system rule. After years of medical research and system modeling, I now see music impact as another field that can be mapped using forward-bending cognitive rules. The purpose of this paper is simply to prove that my math and physics-based research methods are applicable to music science and brain neuroscience. Introduction. Most people talk about music with feelings first. This is natural. Music feels emotional. But beneath the emotional description, music's real destination is still inside the brain. The heart itself does not generate emotion. The heart simply pumps blood. The brain's neural regions generate memory, emotional comprehension, impulsive temperament, anticipation, mood response, and emotional integration. Music can be studied like an engineering stress-strain system where strain is a song's power to touch the brain. Often called touch the heart by people. Stress 1 is melody, the ear-to-brain immediate memory hook. Stress 2 is lyric, the meaning and recall load on language centers. Stress 3 is rhythm, the brain-to-heart sync impulse coupling melody plus lyric. John Lennon was born in 1940 in Liverpool, UK. In this research, I chose his song, Imagine, not for style, but for its clarity. The melody sits on piano intervals that are easy to store in working memory. The words are processed by language comprehension and long-term meaning regions in our brains. The rhythm does not shift abruptly like dance or rock beat. It flows like a neutral loading force supporting adoption. This song is one of the strongest cultural adoption memory examples in history, because many generations already recognize it mentally. That makes it a perfect strain proxy to study how melody, meaning, and rhythm leave an accumulated music impact inside the brain across decades. I call this the music impact. I heard this song in 1972 when arriving at MIT for my PhD study in engineering, recognizing its melody first, then learning its meaning later. Since then I observe how the song adoption footprint changed by decades, but retained memory continuity without return to origin resets. Here is the link where many listeners reference this song. For cognitive footprint reviews, here are a few short key sentences inspired by the lyric, rewritten, so each stays under 90 characters and does not quote long copyrighted text. From the song Imagine by Imagine. 1. Imagine a world where peace is natural and fear has no power. 2. Imagine no countries, just people sharing one home. 3. Imagine no war, no walls, no borders to defend. 4. Imagine less possession, more connection. 5. You may say I'm a dreamer, but change always starts in imagination. Understanding the song's message. This song is not about acoustic vibration. It is about human-made divisions. John Lennon asks the brain to simulate a moment without mental barriers that divide people and trigger conflict. He invites the imaginary state inside the brain to feel peace. Beyond identity clusters, beyond political clusters, beyond religious clusters, beyond race clusters, beyond belief clusters, beyond possessions clusters, or regional ideology clusters that divide humans emotionally. The barriers he talks about are not in Hz frequencies of physics, but in human identity clusters like nations, borders, races, beliefs, wealth possessions, or religious grouping identities. That is the message of cognitive simulation invitation. The brain experiments what peace feels like, without physically removing the real-world structure. Short, the song is a mental peace simulation experiment invitation, not a manifesto of physical world reconstruction. Behavior and contribution of the three input stresses on music impact. First, melody, M, is 43% VMT energy share. Melody impact flows from the ears to the brain faster than words. The melody of Imagine is simple piano intervals, singable, recall-friendly, and sits in the brain tomorrow. Hum recall circuits after only 2 to 3 listens. It hits fast, stays long, travels across decades without breaking continuity, and deposits the largest memory energy area. This viscoplastic energy share is 43%, because the brain stores sound memory faster than text or phrased meaning. A listener can lose meaning, but rarely loses melody recall tomorrow after adoption, even if each decade adds more songs competing for attention. The melody of Imagine remains stable in the auditory, working memory zone unless replaced by more dominant tune patterns. The melody adoption contour was rated constantly high across 7 decades from 1960 through 2020, but its adoption slope gently bends, not resetting. Second, lyric, L, is 30% VMT energy share. Lyrics are meaning signals stored through hearing and comprehension, then recalled later by personal memory and emotion. Lyrics slower than melody, but carry deeper meaning centers interactions. Each generation hears wording differently, but meaning layer stays topologically connected. Lyric impact rose from the 1960s to the 2000s, boosted strongly in the 1970s during the peace and idealism movement. After 2010, lyric impact softened as digital generations heard many new songs competing for attention. Lyric adds deep meaning and stays in memory, but not as strongly or as visibly as melody. Third, rhythm, R, is 27% VMT energy share. Rhythm is not separate. It is the brain's combined response to melody, memory, and lyric meaning. The rhythm in the sum of Imagine is calm and steady. It supports recall, but it does not dominate like dance beats or rock drums. It works as quiet support, not the main force. Rhythm carries 27% of the total energy, close to lyric at 30%, because rhythm reflects beat synchronization, tapping impulse, memory coupling, and neural entrainment in the brain. It is not dominant, but deeply connected to meaning and recall. Melody, lyric, rhythm data for 7 decades. Here are the 7 decades adoption stress numbers used in the system. Melody, auditory memory hook. 1960s is 9.0, 1970s is 9.5, 1980s is 9.7, 1990s is 9.8, 2000s is 9.9, 2010s is 9.5, 2020s is 9.0. Lyric is the brain's meaning load, processed through hearing and comprehension. It is flexible across generations, but stays connected in shared memory. Lyric, 1960s is 6.0, 1970s is 8.0, 1980s is 7.0, 1990s is 7.5, 2000s is 7.5, 2010s is 6.5, 2020s is 6.0. Rhythm is the brain's impulse and feel response formed from music. Melody and lyric meaning, often expressed as heart-touching. Rhythm, 1960s is 5.5, 1970s is 6.0, 1980s is 6.5, 1990s is 6.5, 2000s is 6.0, 2010s is 5.5, 2020s is 5.0. Strain measures how strongly a song is adopted, remembered, and how much impact it leaves in people's brains across decades. Once it becomes shared memory, the impact does not reset. Strain, music impact. 1960s is 60, 1970s is 70, 1980s is 80, 1990s is 90, 2000s is 95, 2010s is 85, 2020s is 70. TDA results, geometry of the adoption shape. Next I observed how these data bend in a 4D spatial space using TDA logic. 1. The melody layer forms the highest continuous contour. No breaks, no disjoint clusters, no fade resets. 2. The lyric layer forms the next bending contour in meaning regions, slightly lower than the melody layer, growing social resonance and comprehension, but bending softer, not losing continuity. 3. The rhythm layer tracks close to the lyric layer as an emotional coupling neighbor because it is computed from the melody recall and lyric comprehension combo. 4. The overall shape is a rising arch with adoption peaking decades after release in 1971, then bending gently downward after 2010 under digital generational song competition and attention load, but never resetting to its origin. The layers form a continuous, connected adoption flow when viewed on a 2D spatial topology plane. Viscoplastopology synthesis. VMT measures cumulative stress-strain energy areas. TDA measures geometric shape continuity, data points, connectivity, adoption geometry, proximity of stresses and boundary bending. Combining both lenses, physics, energy and mathematics geometry, I confirm three truths. Melody area share largest, 43%. Lyric meaning vibrates next, 30%. Rhythm coupling near lyric layer, 27%. Cultural strain adoption bends forward without reset. Adoption does not reset. I repeat because this is the system's point. The energy deposits do not reset once a song becomes a shared, multi-generation memory imprint. This is not speculation. This is the brain adoption mechanic. A truly timeless song, like its impact, lasts not because it is loud, but because its beautiful melody and core message keep touching people across generations, even as music styles change. Final conclusion. From music impact behaves as a system with path dependence and hysteresis. It does not return to the pre-song baseline, even though recognition, emotional pull, or usage can fade or be overshadowed. Topology-based analysis can track these long adoption paths if done carefully, but durability must be proven by real adoption proxies, not claimed numbers alone. Music impact grows by decade as listeners adopt and remember it. It peaks first in the brain's melodic memory circuits, then deeper in the language circuits that store lyrics. Rhythm stays close to lyrics as an emotional neighbor, because both travel together in memory and meaning. Figure illustration notes. Cognitive adoption curve of Imagine, from 1971 to 2020. The long-term influence of the song Imagine, released in 1971 on the album Imagine by John Lennon after leaving the band, The Beatles, remains a long-tailed memory system that does not reset to zero. Once adopted in culture and memory, its impact region does not return to zero, even as new music competes for attention across decades. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.